Hello, this is Psycho Miki, and today I'm not feeling very well, but it doesn't matter because we are going to talk about a really important topic that is my country, Argentina. So this is a big topic, and I wanted to take the chance. I wanted to do it now. That's why I'm trying to do this video just right now, even though I don't feel well. Because there are many news talking about the treasurer of the United States giving dollars to Argentina. And, well, there are many things to talk about my country. But I want to organize this video in some chapters. The first one is going to be the introduction, the history of the Argentina state and how it started in Argentina. After that, I want to talk about, well, that it's a lot, so sit down, bring a tea or something. This is going to be tough. Well, the news about Argentina started crazy misinformation about it, and it's really painful for me. So share this video to your friend that doesn't know what Argentina is. I did a makeup related. I'm feeling bad, so I look like this. But well, we are going to talk about Argentina. Well, in the current Argentinian territory, we have to go back because Argentina wasn't all the time Argentina, right? It's a made-up state, every state. But evidence of human presence dates back to the late of Pleistocene between 13th century, 13 and 12th millennium BP. So the region, so in the regions there were many autochthonous, original inhabitants. I was trying to find an accurate way to say pueblos originarios, right? That were the towns or the little societies that exist before. And I said little because they were less people than now. But okay, say native inhabitants were hunters and gatherers in Patagonia and also in Pampas and in Chaco. There were also farmers, horticulturalists in the northwest of Argentina with agro-pottery traditions, the Aguita Calchaquí. So we have a long tradition of the European conquest and colonization. In the littoral, the Guarani practiced horticulture, maize, cassava, and before everything, it was before the arrival of Europeans. And it's appropriate to note that in recent millennia, ceramics, plant animal domestication, and the establishment of villages spread across various areas of South America, rather than applying Paleolithic, Mesolithic, or Neolithic categories. So before European conquest and colonizations, the territory was inhabited by multiple people, multiple cultures, heterogeneous languages, economies, and political organizations. And during the 14th and 15th century, the Inca Empire incorporated sectors of the northwestern Argentinian. I'm going to put a map over here. So this empire was really massive in comparison to the communities in the native Argentina. So time passed by, and in 1516 the arrival of Europeans is recorded with Juan Díaz de Solís expedition to the Rio de la Plata. Thus, Spanish settlements were established and the colonial rule began. This wasn't that easy. It wasn't, the Spanish people came and, well, this is ours. Of course, that will be so simple and reductionist. So this process wasn't neither linear nor complete, prolonged and marked by negotiation, pacts and resistance, and also war. And it's important to say a population in Argentina that remained outside of the colonial rule. For example, in Chaco, the Huichis, the Quom, the Mocoví, and in the Pampas and Patagonia, the Tehuelches, the Puelches, and later the Mapuches. So the creation of Argentina was, as any creation of a state, was tough with many people wanted or not wanted, saying that this land is ours, and also a colonial story. So Argentina began its independence in 1810. Again, this was not a linear, it was a revolution, the May Revolution, and that's when this process started. But the declaration of being an independence nation from the Spanish monarchy, well, that was in 1816. Okay, time by many political incidents happened, many political actors too. And between 1878 and 1884, the conquest of the desert and the Chaco campaigns tripled the territory of Argentina, but involved the appropriation of native inhabitants. So from 1880 to 1916, the PAN governed Argentina, and this wasn't such a democratic government, but they create a really successful agro-export model that bring wealth and immigration and create some middle class, but also exclusion and many new ideas, and as always discrimination, and many people thinking about how this new state should be, right? Well, then many historical moments that were important, like the law Sáenz Peña in 1912 imposed secret and compulsory male suffrage, bringing Hipólito Yrigoyen. So now the people can vote, and the vote is secret. Okay, Tampai. And September 6th, 1930, overthrowing Hipólito Yrigoyen and initiating the infamous decade of fraudulent government. From 1930 to 1932, Uriburu made the dictatorship in Argentina, and the United States made a rapid recognition. Following the coup, September 6, 1930, Washington recognized the de facto government, part of its practice of recognition of provisional governments when they control the territory and promised the election. This recognition legitimized the regime internationally. And we have to understand also that at 1930, where a global crisis, the economic crisis of 1929, also known as the Great Depression, and promoted a model of import substitutions, developing industry. And okay, what's the problem about? Well, if Argentina is agro-export, it's all the time exporting, and now the countries want to develop their own industry, well, we have to change our focus on economy. So that's when the revolution of 1943 happened and ended the infamous decade, installing a military government, again, that gave rise to the Peronism. Kind of. This is, okay, I'm talking about relative topics right now. So we have to understand, I try to give a global context about the country, right? Because I was talking about inhabitants in Argentina, and now I'm talking about kind of Argentina wasn't so involved, but of course we are part of the world and everyone it's inside in some way. Okay, so in 1943, the landscape changed a lot, and this happened all the time in Argentina. So the model of imports trying to develop an industry to make things in Argentina to not buy it outside, well, that was the political view at the time. Also, for most of World War II, Argentina maintained a neutral stance, declaring war on the Axis only on March of 27th from 1945. Okay, again, Juan Domingo Perón assumed the presidency in 1946. This is an important figure in Argentina, and by important I mean super polarizing figure too. And he had the union support, the masses support, and during his administration between 1946 and 1955, there were many important reforms. For example, the woman suffrage in 1947, free university tuition, nationalization of railroads, promotion of the steel industry. Well, this is what I was talking before, right? Trying to make the industry bigger. And also there was this social role that also Eva Perón had. And then he was re-elected in 1951, the first election that included female. And in 1955, a civil military in Plaza de Mayo left more than 300 identified victims. Plaza de Mayo, for those who doesn't know what it is, it's this. And in September, Perón was overthrown by the Liberating Revolution, that is what they call themselves, which outlawed the Peronism. So 1955 and 1958, Lombardy and Aramburu were the ones that were in charge now. And Argentina reframed again. They were like, I don't like anything that you are doing, Perón, so I'm going to change everything back to before. So they reframed its foreign policy around the OAS and the Cold War, right? Because we have to understand 1955. This is after World War II, and this changed the mechanics on the war. And well, we have in some way to standpoint in the world. So the US saw this as a window to consider political and economical cooperation with Buenos Aires. For example, in this letter from the Secretary of State to the Secretary of Defense in Washington, it says, "It seems essential to me," Holland stated in part, "that defense put itself clearly on record that it will make funds available or seek them from the Congress before conversation with Perón are initiated." Right? This is in 1955. Yeah? The year then happened the liberating. So we see in this letter that tried in some way to get Argentina to US chair. But what happened was a more violent way to be on US side. The amount contemplated should meet reasonable Argentine aspirations in relation to other bilateral programs, although it is possible that Perón will not show any disposition to agree to the terms required for us to provide grant aid. We should do all that it's feasible to ensure that, if he doesn't agree to such terms, we are in a position to deliver the goods. So what does it mean? There was a tactical commitment to bring him closer to the US security framework through incentives, not violence, right? Like trying to give Argentina equipment, training from military assistance program. We are going to talk about this military assistance program after. As was done with other countries in the hemisphere, right? Because, well, again, we are going to talk about other countries in a little bit. So the US to negotiate with credibility with Argentina, and they need funds for that. So the objective was the alignment with the logic of Cold War and military standardization if Argentina accepted the terms. But what happened next? Just a week later, the crisis erupted that led in September on 1955, the Peron downfall. Under the new regime, the relationships with the US quickly normalized. So random, right? Like just a week, and then we are part of the United States relationship in a dictatorship. Okay, so this relationship include refocusing in international financial. What is that? Well, it means joining the IMF and the World Bank in 1956. And this fits with the spirit of that letter, right? Washington want Argentina within its economic and defense architecture. So I'm going to read a quote. In June of 1955, Dulles asked the Pentagon to secure funds before speaking with Perón. If Argentina accepts U.S. for military aid, Washington must be able to comply. This is so important if we think about now. But well, I'm going to continue. This was an attempt to hook Perón into the Cold War apparatus with concrete incentives, and all this occurred months before the downfall. So in this dictatorship, they wanted to, and this is what they say, they wanted to not change the politics, change the mindsets of the Argentinians. Since the first dictatorship, they said they wanted to change how Argentinians think. They wanted to be more connected to the US and the US word. So in order to accomplish that, they banned Perón and Peronism. You couldn't read about him, so he had to go into exile until 1973. And during the ban, Peronism maintained the influence and resistance in some different ways. It's not like the people accept the ban, just submissive and put the head down. And this is really important to clarify to other countries. The Peronism is not communism at all. It's another way to make the capital and the workforce work together. It's not even close to communism. Okay, then time passed by, and in 1958, Arturo Frondizi was elected under the ban of Peronism, but was overthrown in 1962 by Jose Maria Guido, assumed power under military control. Whoa! What? Okay, in 1963, Arturo Humberto Illia was elected, but deposed in 1966 by Onganía, who established, you are not going to guess what, exactly, the Argentine Revolution, a permanent dictatorship. This dictatorship, supported by the US, abolished political activity and generate a state of terrorism, provoking guerrillas and uprisings such as the Cordobazo. This is a really important event in Argentina, that it's the Cordobazo. Okay, so we're looking at political atmosphere that was tricky between years, and also with lots of moments of trying to be more democratic and other moments where some parts of the society were just not handled anymore this democratic. They were like, all of you are stupid and I'm going to have my own dictatorship that it's supported by. Okay, so we are in 1966 on Gania, with military assistance and training from the United States. After the coup against Ilya, the President Ilya, Washington's official line was to de facto accept the new government. Again, they were like, oh yeah, a dictatorship? Yeah, that is the new government. So they observe and develop long-term. This is important too. They are going to develop long-term policy. For example, a big debt that the state has to pay after. So while continuing the military relationship, for example, assistance, sales, and training schools, they were from the United States, and several Argentinian officers attend to the School of Army. Okay, so time passed by, and we are in 1973. Peronism legalized and Peron to the presidency. After his death in 1974, yes, after 1 year he was the president, then he was succeeded by his wife. She was already dead, so María Estela Martínez de Perón. This period was categorized by economic crisis, political violence, with the emerge of the Argentine anti-communist alliance. That was why I was talking before that the Peronism isn't communism, because of the AAA. The AAA was a paramilitary group that had clandestine detention centers. And this is also important, the clandestine detention centers. So time goes by, and on March 24 of 1976, a new military coup established the national reorganization process. You can guess, yes, it's a genocidal dictatorship lasting almost 8 years and was coordinated internationally by the Plan Condor. So thousands of people disappeared and hundreds of children lost their identities. So human rights organizations such as the mothers and grandmothers of the Plaza de Mayo emerged. The dictatorship enjoyed lots of support from business and the IMF. Why? The debt is also something important. I'm going to talk about the debt later. But the dictatorship enjoyed this support because it was following the neoliberal model that was support, right? There was a reason why you will bring them guns, money, right? This is also another part. So the foreigner debt grew dramatically. This is part of the term relationship with the US. So after the coup of March 24, 1976, the classified documents show that Henry Kissinger, in that moment Secretary of State, gave permissive political signance to Argentinian Foreign Minister Cesar Gussetti, and I'm going to quote now, "If there are things that need to be done, do them quickly and return quickly to normal." This was conveyed in meetings in June and October of 1976 and was also reported by Human Rights Secretary Patricia Derian. The following year, Derian noted that Kissinger did not push for human rights in those initial meetings. So this early political wing was interpreted by the junta. The junta was the government, the military government in Argentina at that time, as to deepen the repression, so being more aggressive. This was a systematic plan to disappear people, to stole the babies of pregnant women, and to ban for example, the Little Prince book. I'm going to put this as a stupid example of things that were banned, because it was a real coward style, because everything that was associated to something that was communist, and that will something talking about empathy or talking about love or songs. Many artists have to leave the country. Many scientists have to leave the country. Many journalists have to leave the country, because if not, they are going to be disappeared. And I'm saying disappeared because they weren't killed. They were disappeared. They were taken to these clandestine centers, and they were killed in their torture before being killed. If there was a pregnant woman, they take the baby, then they give it to some military family, and they kill the mother and throw it in the river in helicopters. And all of this that I'm saying was a systematic plan, and the methodology was written down. It wasn't just an idea that happened in the moment. Oh, we have many communists, we have to kill them. And okay, I find this way. No, it was an organization and systematic. So now I'm going to talk about Operation Condor. So the US know about and monitored the repressive coordination in southern cone. So Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, and Brazil. CIA files and State Department cables describe the modus operandi and the disappearance. There was cooperation and intelligence flow at various levels and times, as well as political tolerance in the 70s. The US gives weapon and training. They continue until the US Congress and the Carter administration impose human rights cuts. Kennedy and Humphrey order a halt to aid sales, IMF, to Argentina. The White House instructed votes against or abstentions on loans other than basic needs, loans as long as there was no progress on human rights. What happened? We have a dictatorship. The dictatorship take a massive debt, and then that debt, it has to be paid by the people that didn't choose that government. And I'm going to quote something about the systematic torture documented by the State Department itself, Carter. They said, "We continue to receive numerous highly credible reports that torture is routinely used in the interrogations of detainees." They talk about electric cattle prods and submarines. That means having head submersion to kill people. Systematic nature of torture wasn't something an isolated exist. It wasn't a police or a military that commit something that wasn't supposed to happen. Official memo of January of 1979 records routine torture, specific methods such as electric cattle prod, waterboarding, and a pattern of disappearance described as a calculated policy. Early signals from Washington, Kissinger, in 1976, private messages were hasty. Do them quickly, the quicker you succeed, which in practice functioned as a political cover while state terrorism was being carried out. So now we are going to talk about who benefited from the debt crisis in 1976. Well, first, large local groups and subsidiaries of multinationals, because the state guaranteed the exchange rate for them and end up nationalizing most of their external liabilities. The official report itself, private debt was around US dollar talking 15 billion, and 90% was nationalized, while the total external debt jumped from 8.5 billion to 45 billion to 1,984. right? And among these beneficiaries, it lists subsidiaries and banks, for example, Renault, Mercedes-Benz, Ford, BM, Citibank, First National Bank of Boston, Chains, Bank of America, Deutsche, etc. Of course, they were all beneficial by this debt. And local groups from the financial homeland, like Perez Comp, Bungambong, well, the family Macri, then he was president, the Chint, Asindar, well, many companies from Argentina, or financial conglomerates. Then we have the banks and financial traders, right? The financial institution law, they regulated and strengthened the Central Bank of Argentina role as an arbiter of the new banking business. With interest rate liberalization and capital inflows, the carry bicycle became the standard, right? Like borrowing abroad at low price and lending at high price domestically, with the state as a safety net. So debtors with exchange rate insurance, and we are going to talk then about the nationalization in 1982. So the bank, the National Central Bank of Argentina, offered exchange rate insurance and financially issued absorb mature debt and exchange it for the central bank bonds. The exchange rate risk ended up being assumed by the public sector. So there is official BCRI documentation and the related resolutions. Well, and of course, another of the people that were beneficial were the external creditors, right? International banks, the petrodollar-based banks that were placed massive loans in Latin America. And why the dictatorship need this amount of money? Like, okay, it was beneficial for many groups, but why the dictatorship? Okay, yeah, maybe for that. Really just that. And it's kind of, but it's of the economy and the power. The Martinez Dios program tried to open the economy, trying to make a foreign investment law to focus in investment, but the investment was just these bicycle trades. It wasn't a real investment in any real activity. Then he started, foreign investing law was equal treatment of foreign capital, free transfers of profit, financial deregulation, and exchange rate table that appreciate the exchange rate in real terms. So the results were cheap imports, deindustrialization, so the industry in Argentina couldn't compete, so they just closed, and a debt-financed external deficit. In a moment, that was great because there was excess international liquidity, banks sought to lend, and dictatorship offer political stability, right? Repression, labor discipline. So this combination, it was great for capital inflows and rapid borrowing, validated by organization and markets during this euphoric phase. Yeah, everything is going to be great. I'm going to give you $15 billion. That reminds us of something. But we have an artificial anti-inflammatory archer. The little table foreshadow devaluation lower than inflation. So the liberate exchange rate liked to contain prices, but at the cost of import consumption and loss of competitiveness. When they become more real, not this fictional dollar that they made in 1981, bankruptcies and unpayable dollar debt exploded. So what we can do about this unpayable dollar debt that is going to explode? Oh, don't worry, we can socialize losses. To avoid these massive corporate defaults, the state activate exchange rate insurance. So the private sector wins on the upside and the public sector pays on the downside. So the official report estimates that 90% of the private debt was nationalized and 38 groups held 49 of that debt. Okay, so now we are going to talk about our friend the IMF and its partners support the dictatorship approach. Journalistics and academic reconstructions point to the founders' broad support for Martínez Dios's plans, while the debt escalated. Okay, so what does it mean? Okay, that we have the winners that were the conglomerates that dollars with access to great insurance and nationalization of the risk, and then local and international banks for the interest and fees, and importers and consumers of cheap importers. But the cheap goods was while the exchange rate lasted. So that wasn't true. The exchange rate wasn't that cheap, and then everything exploded again. So who had the losses in here? Well, the state and the citizens who absorb, because the state, who is the state? Well, the state is the citizens that have to pay it. How? Have to absorb it in liabilities and industry and employment hit by the opening and exchange rate lag. So there were massive mortgage debtors due to circular 1050 that it's like index loans that skyrocket. Yeah, because we have many money, and the banks were like, I'm going to take money, and then you have to pay it some way, right? Okay, but not just from Argentina. Washington considered any left-leaning government or movement in there to represent a danger, not necessarily military, but ideologically, within the East-West conflict. To address the danger, the so-called national security doctrine, this is really important for this dictatorship that we are talking about, that it's the last one in Argentina, was developed. A key concept in the coordination of repressive policies in the southern cone. Although the NSD was nearly open proclaimed as an official doctrine by the US, it was outlined and declassified reports and memoranda from the White House, the CIA, and the National Security Council. So it's kind of like, it exists. Also, we can see now we have access to the CEA manual set of the Americas thought techniques for infiltrating, kidnapping, torturing, and disappearing political opponents. This training in repressive methods professionalized anti-communist persecution on the regional scale. So the idea of an internal war against subversion took root deeply in the armed force of the Southern Cone, which began to see themselves more as the guarantors of Western and Christian civilization in the face of Marxism chaos. Did you hear about that? I'm talking about the 70s, but by the early 1970, the influence of this doctrine had already resulted in several successes, like in Chile, in Brazil. We talk about the countries that use this doctrine. Okay, so we kind of get it. I think that I was clear about what happened in the dictatorship. And we are going to talk about the modern Argentina's trajectory. So we are going to talk about the crisis after this. So we are going to talk about one of the biggest crises. I was just 1 year, but I was born, kind of. So the turn of the millennium brought Argentinians' worst crisis, 2001. So we had an of debt of US dollars at the time, the largest sovereign default ever, and this collapse of decades of long 1 peso, $1 currency peg triggered the economy depression and mass unrest. So the people didn't have any job. They fight. There are movies that are really explicit about this crisis. It was a chaos. In any context you think about a chaos, economically, socially. The people were starving. They have to throw rice in trucks because the people were, again, they were in this chaos. All the people start setting on fire. They starting to enter to supermarkets and grab the things. So 5 presidents resign or were out in just 2 weeks until Peronist Eduardo Dualde took office and established the situation. This 2001 make this que se vayan todos. This means like we don't want anyone, right? We don't want anyone, basically. So talking about the politics, and to reach point again, I'm going to take it back. But well, what happened next? Mika, we have this massive debt. What happened? Well, Nestor Kirchner rise in 2003, shared in a period of kind of, well, he's a Peronism, but different, right? It's Kirchnerism. So this opened a new way to see politics in this new context. So he was boosted by a global commodities boom. So in the global context, Argentina was in a good moment at that time. So Kirchner oversaw strong recovery. Argentina paid off the IMF debt and in several years of growth in many areas, right? Educations, poverty. Argentina was having before, when in the 80s, in the 90s, in 2001, and I'm omitting important things, right, because I want to come closer. But well, man, yeah, many crazy things happened, but there was this hyperinflation. The people had to pay off, and in the supermarket they have a person that was constantly changing the prices of the things. So that was the context. So for Argentina to have years of growth was, oh my god. And the worst part is that I was a child, and kind of like everything was kind of like, yeah, I remember, it's true, we're a Latin America country, but I public school, I have a time in my public school, my teachers were great. I really think I have a great education, like in my primary school, and then, well, things happened in high school, but I'm going to talk later because we are in 2000. So after Nestor Kirchner, the successor was his wife, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner. You might hear she's on jail, but at her house, right? And continue an interventionist policies, right? From 2007 and 2015, whole policies were trying to protect Argentina in some way. They were taking the roots of Peron on trying to make the industry, but was hard for this new world because the industry didn't work as before. It wasn't like manual labor anymore, right? But she expanded social programs and renationalized some key industries, pension system, oil, like YPF. So, however, by early 2010, the boom fade. We can't be relating in a commodity boom that we have because the industry changed. So Cristina have to resort in really heavy currency controls. We couldn't, and I'm talking because at that moment I was 10 years old, and I remember my grandmother trying to buy dollars because it's really typical because of all these crises and things. The people start saving in dollars. This is changing. The people are economics now, but okay, it was really normal for Argentinians to have a little bit of money and buy pesos and just have it. Oh, another thing I'm forgetting about 2001 is that El Corralito. What happened in El Corralito? I'm going to explain, and this is part of that chaos, that many people that had in their bank accounts US dollars, well, they don't have it anymore, right? Those dollars disappear. And this is an important phrase. I'm going to say it in Spanish. And this is an important phrase, that is, the ones that have dollars are going to have dollars. But, well, that didn't happen. The banks take the dollars, we don't know. So the people, imagine all your savings, all your life savings that you were having in a currency, and they were controlling the currency. Yeah, they had the control of everything that you do. But I'm not talking about 1% of difference on the rate. I'm talking about massive difference. And yeah, so the people don't trust at all at banks. So this is why I'm talking about the people buying dollars and having physical dollars, because the people didn't trust anymore in the bank systems. So as you can imagine, there wasn't anymore that boom, that growing again, because the international market changed a lot. Technology started being one of the first ones. But how are we going to solve all these commodities subsides that we have? So, well, also money printing and, yeah, inflation, balloon public debt, and she left office amid high deficits and kind of like not true data poverty, for example. That was the thing that was saying a lot. And I think 2015, I was 15 years old. I remember having all this conversation with my mother in the school. But yeah, I think until 2015, everything was kind of gray. And then after that, it goes, I'm talking about you. But well, I'm going to set that apart and saying that in 2015, well, Mauricio Macri appeared. He market-friendly reforms. He lift the currency control, right? Like now, because with Cristina, you can only buy $200. You have to prove that you have the money, whatever, and then you couldn't buy it anymore. So it was impossible for the people to buy dollars. But why was that? In order to kind of control the exchange rate. Well, and because of many reasons. This is just a reduced way of what happened. Okay. So, Mauricio Macri. You might remember Mauricio Macri from the last dictatorship. I said that the family of Macri, they were in the government before, but well, they have nationalized a big debt, right? So that the whole citizens of Argentina have to pay. But well, now it's the president. And well, he reopened Argentina, right? The same thing ever. Oh, we closed the economy. We are going to our industry bigger, but how make that it's really hard to compete against, for example, China, against United States. They have many resources in many areas, and also they didn't have this collapse and changing, switching the logicals all the time. Because this is happening all the time. Not like, oh yeah, we want to be liberals and we are going to be forever. No. It's like, well, years of this, well, 3 years of doing exactly the opposite. And well, maybe years, but yeah, that was the story. But well, with Macri, these market-friendly reforms didn't bring any dollars. Who is going to coming to invest in, like, in what? Besides taking our resources. Like, really, okay, it's another topic. So by the 2018, pound on the pesos forced to a record 57 billion IMF bailout, the largest in IMF history. Whoa, can we make an applause? So yeah, we pay it, remember, to the IMF, but now we are going to, because we have to prove everyone we are such a great market. So the inflation remains stubborn, and as 4-year debt moon, Macri ended his term much as it began, resisting currency controls and handing back the crisis to the Peronists. He was like, okay, this is not my plan. This was problem from the Kirchners to fix your problem, but I couldn't. Okay, 2019. Okay, Alberto Fernandez, yeah, lockdown, COVID, lots of inflation. Anyway, and this is again my experience. I was really, because I was working when I finished high school, and I still remember my first paycheck was 1,000 pesos, and a super cheap shared house, right? You have to share the bathroom with all the the departments. Well, that was 8,000, and my salary was 7,000, and then I was like, to leave, where I'm going to live. I was really scared, I was really frustrated, and at the same time I was studying my public university, and with my salary, yeah, I could eat, really. And thinking about it, if I think about it, I went to the university, and then I have to run because it was so close, right? I didn't have much time, but I used to eat, and I was vegetarian at the time, and I used to eat like something that I bought in a place, and nowadays that's impossible. Like, you can't go and buy something, like you don't eat until you go home. That happened after when I started working in the call. Doesn't matter, I have been working 25 since that age, so I know how it feels to your salary is not working for anything. But don't, because I was living with my grandmother, and with my grandmother we had many problems, like economical problems. Everything was a mess. Really, everything was a mess. Me with my shitty salary, and her with her pension, like, had diabetes. Everything was shitty, and I wanted to die. I'm talking about me because this is I'm part of Argentina. I'm sorry, but yeah. So I wanted to die. Really, I wanted to. It was so urgent. I tried to die many because I was working, studying. I lost my menstruation for more than a year. I was working in the call center. I really, I was at it, but I was trying to do my best to have at least some money. Had only one day off. I didn't have any, like, I didn't have Christmas. I was working in the call center. I didn't have, like, well, so sick. I have to cook. I have to do everything in a big house. My grandmother used to wake up at night with nightmares, saying that she wanted to die. So that was, I'm kind of 18, going worse and worse. And well, at least, like, the medication for that, she took many pills, and she took like 5, and I have to control it too, because if not, she will take it wrongly, and then they're going to have more problems. But yeah, so okay, what I was saying was, like, I really wanted to die, but I couldn't access to any therapy, anything. There doesn't exist any support. I didn't have any social support either, because I was working all the time. Like, how I'm to make it, like, I'm studying and working, and I was like, I have to be the best. I'm to study so hard. I'm going to, so I can have a place to live and food. And my dream was to go into China, because they have a lot of scholarship, and you can live in the university, and you can work, and with your work you can pay the food. You know what that is? It's fucking fantastic. You can literally eat. So for me, it was like, yeah, I spent Christmas without anything to eat. In my was like one egg, and I have to share with my grandmother. Like, it was like, hey grandmother, today, and she didn't spend Christmas with me. She locked herself in. Okay, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so I was spending my time. Everything economically was shit. But well, at least you have stability in some way. Socially, I don't know. You have some stability. I was thinking like my dream was to finish my degree, to be a psychologist, and then work and having at least a normal salary allowed me to eat. I wasn't expecting much. I just wanted to have the fucking basics. Really, really. And well, starting therapy because I really wanted to commit suicide. But then the time goes by. We are here in 2025. I'm singing because it's horrible, and this is my way to talk about horrible things. I don't know. Just because if not, I will be crying. Everything that happened to me was horrible, horrible, and many people doesn't know how it is and how it feels because they are from other countries. That's why I'm doing this video. I love you all. Thank you for watching. Okay, so now that I made that song, I'm going to talk about now. We are going to talk about Milei. So we have many things to say. I don't want to talk about who is he, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to talk about now some patterns that are happening in our state right now. So rising state violence and inequality, but I think this is a global thing. Everywhere are looking at that. But you know the difference? That's the difference for me, at least. Like in here in the States right now, it's true there are state violence. It's true there are inequality. It's true, but the people have more access to the food. For example, a can of I don't know, some beans, it's like you can find it for $2, a big one, and I don't know, you can eat with that. Two persons can eat for one day or even 2 days. Like for me, I was living like that, so you can live with $2. Like of course you're going to have some problems like I did, but I wasn't eating fucking nothing. And the worst, like the people in here have more incomes, even if they are really, really low incomes, they have better incomes, so the things are cheaper here, and in terms of food. And not only that, the incomes are so more, so it's different, the situation. And again, in my case, I'm such a privileged girl in Argentina. There are many other people that lives in an even worse, right? I'm such a like average person. Okay, but stop talking about you, Micaela. So in recent years, observers warned that repression is escalating the guy's order. During the first half of 2025 alone, Argentine security force injured and detained more Protestants than in all 2024. And what a leading human rights watchdog called an exponential rise in police violence. Over January and June 2025, police crackdowns were recorded at 21 out of 39 public protests, up from 17 out to 60 the previous year. At least 1,251 people were hurt at demonstration in the 6-month span, already exceeding the 1,216 injuries report in all 2024. So mass protest by retirees in March of 2025, I'm talking about 70 years old people, 80 years old people that were demanding pension increases and runaway inflation. Why? Because the inflation increase, the salaries don't. And we have an hyperinflation, like 1, 2%, 3%, 4%. That's not true. Numbers are lying right now. I get it. They have to lie in order the IMF to trust in the state. But that is not true. I'm paying rent in Argentina still, and that's not true. I have to pay things, and every month you have like 20% more. Okay, so the pensions right now are 12 of October of 2025. It's 246 dollars. And so you can understand the prices in food. It's even more than the United States. It's more expensive in Argentina, and not only that, the people have to pay rent because house is just for millionaires. Like how are you going to do it with such a low salary? Well, so rent, it's something that nowadays it's this amount in the city of Buenos Aires. So a normal rent, and it's 400 and 2022 average in the city of Buenos Aires. So you can imagine like how a person that is 240, like, well, maybe they can live with their parents, yeah. Maybe the pensions can leave their families. Okay, so there will be people living in one place, and that's the solution, right? But still, like, how they are to eat, and what if there is babies, infants there? But well, so the violence. It's not just of young people, you know. No, it's also to the 80 years old retirement woman that it's protesting against, well, asking for a pension. So human rights groups have condemned these incidents as of a wider pattern. And this controversial new anti-protest protocols that was in 2023. So the Argentinian security forces have been guaranteed broader leeway to suppress roadblocks and demonstrations. And the protocol criminalized disruptive protest and outdoor force even when do not create a situation of danger. So why they are saying of do not create a situation of danger? Because before, the police can only intervene if they see something is suspicious, but now can just pick some random person and say, well, you're part of this protest, so come with me. So parallel to the rise in state violence and violence in general, as you can imagine, Argentina faced a deepened social crisis, growing hunger and poverty in one of the world's greatest food producing nations. Yeah, Argentina, it's an agricultural powerhouse, the world's largest exporter of soybean meal and oil, the second largest corn exporter, and the key global supplier of wheat and beef. With only 46 million people and vast of fertile pampas, the country has more than enough to run land to feed its population. But yet, the Argentinians struggle to put food in our table. What a weird paradox, right? So over half of Argentinians people now live in poverty, according to the official data. A spike from 42 at the end of 2023 and 63 in 2024. That's roughly 18 million Argentines, including an estimated of 7 in 10 children living below the poverty line. Yeah, around 18 of the population, 18, is in extreme poverty, unable to afford even a basic food basket. Food insecurity has climbed sharply, and recent UN report found that 36 of Argentinians experience moderate to severe food insecurity, meaning that 1 in 3 people are regularly skipping meals or eating less due to lack of resources. Yeah, this rate has nearly doubled in the past 7 years and reflecting a rapid deterioration in living conditions, perhaps most good malnutrition related illness could be virtual unseen in the country in modern times had begun to appear among poor communities. And another part was that before there were slum soup kitchens that once buffered the hungry. Now they don't have food anymore because the government used to give these places resources, food for the really and extreme poverty people. They cut it because they wanted to do an auditory They wanted to see if they were really giving the food to the poor people. So they never did. They admitted they never did that, and they just stop and let the food rotten. They never give it to anyone. So the people were starving, families, kids were starving, because I work in many places that they really need it. And yeah, that's the thing. They were just there, rotten. And then they say like, oh, we just don't want to feed people that doesn't deserve it. It's like this privilege that the state is giving to the people that is starving. So this is really cruel, and talking about this, it's horrible. And our country, it's seeing children with vitamin A deficiency, blindness, and a lot of symptoms of protein deficiency. And it's going to be a structural problem in Argentina. So the result is a nutrition double crisis, widespread undernourishment among the poor, alongside rising obesity. For some of 70 of Argentinians are overwhelmed. But why? Why this happened? Right? Because why the poor are obese? Well, because they eat ultra-processed carbs or bread, or the only things that can afford. Okay, well, but now it's time to talk about Javier Milei. Yeah, you were waiting for this, and I make you wait. So, Javier Milei therapy has been met with mixed reactions. So there are many supporters, such a big fans of Milei, and really people that hate Milei so much. But many people around the world were saying that this is going to change Argentina in order to a pro-market reformer finally taking the reins, and now everything is going to change for Argentina, right? At the beginning, yes, the inflation started slowing down, but remained in triple digits year on year. And unemployment ticked up with public pay cuts. So the country witnesses frequent street protests literally every week, kind of. Because every Wednesday through of retirees have been demonstrating in Buenos Aires, demanding pensions raise, what we talked about before, so they can afford food. They are not asking, not even to have a home, right? Just medicine and food. Also students and university staff, because they cut all the resources for university. This started in 2024. So Milei's responses were like, okay, yeah, but we have to pay the IMF, we have to pay things, we don't have money, we don't have wages. But in the meanwhile, that we people still have to government, we have a strong relationship with China and Russia. That's why one of the reasons why I wanted to go to China, because they really value resources and people that effort on things. Not in Argentina, that it's not a thing, right? You can put a lot of effort and nothing is going to happen. You're to have the same shitty life. No, even worse. But well, so now Javier Milei is like, no, I don't like China, I don't like Russia, I love the United States, I love blah. So at the beginning, all the media was like, we love Milei, everything is great. Yeah, the first month were horrible, really, so difficult now. So difficult, it's like a crazy place. Milei is now pro-Western. He has this, it reminds me a little bit of the we were talking about. Now Argentina, it's now in combined maritime forces. So it's like a combined force that is held by United States, and also he wants to move the embassy in Israel to West Jerusalem. Yeah, well, hello. Yeah, okay. He said many things. He wasn't going to put more taxes. That wasn't true. He said, well, many things, because they weren't. Unless he said, I'm going to cut all the resources for the pensions, for... Yeah, he didn't do it because the people is going to literally die if you do that or start setting on fire things. So he can't do that. Well, he couldn't if he could, but he doesn't want to because he wants to start slow, not everything to explode. Okay, but it's not only the economical problem that we're having, because we have a massive IMF debt, and how are we going to pay that? We have to pay that in dollars, and we don't have dollars, and the dollars that we have, it's from exportation of soy, and still that is not enough, and we're not going to have this massive investment that they are wanted because it's not possible. So that's when the swap appear with United States. Still, it's having the control of our currency from United States. It's everything that before need a dictatorship. Well, now, no. Because of also a big control of the media. In Argentina, there are many media options, of mainstream options. Well, I suppose that in general, in the whole world, but Argentina have that thing. There are things that you are not going to even see in TV. But something that exploded a lot was the audios of Karina Milei, that is of Javier Milei, and it says that Diego Spagnuolo, the minister of the disabled ministry, the disability ministry. Okay, so these audios said and proved that they were playing and doing a scam with the prices of the medicine for disability. This minister. So the state have to give to the hospitals some medicine, some hospital, but they do everything a lot more. They charge more for this because they have a connection with this pharmacy. This pharmaceutic, and this pharmaceutic was selling to this double prices, and the 3% was to Karina Milei, and Javier Milei. Why he will take the 3% if she can take the 100%? No, she cannot, because you have to actually, the state have to prove. This is a way of washing money. So the state has to prove in some way that they are using that money to the medicine, right? And you have to have that medicine. You are just charging more, right? You're charging more for the medicine that you can find it cheaper. It's a way of washing money, of taking the money. And that will prove that there are corruption around the... And the worst part, it's the disability minister, and the people with disability are having such a bad time because it's a big crisis. But not only economically, they can't live like that. The people can't live like that. And then we have, and this is the last part, Espert. Espert, José Luis Espert, was the candidate for deputy from the province of Buenos Aires. That was the 6th of October. Something happened. Fred Machado was a business guy that is on jail for being a drug dealer. International drug dealer here in Texas. He had it's proof that Fred Machado was a drug dealer, and it's also proof that he sent money for the campaign to Espert. So this is really something can't hide. Why is he? Because he was really close to Fred Machado, this deputy from Milei, that it's really, really close to Milei, and he's really, really to a drug dealer, an international drug dealer. So they were like, okay, we are going to hide the guy, nothing happened. So it's not the economical problem, the disability problem, the people that are hungry, the people that can't handle anymore, that they have 3 jobs to live bare minimum. Okay, so it's also these corruptions and these weird things that are appearing. But yes, There are many things more to say, but I wanted to say of today's day that this is kind of what me as an Argentinian girl, woman, I can say for my public. So see you next time, and I love you all. Goodbye.